Yo, what is up guys, my name is Grizzly, and I know that there's a lot of you out there that desperately want to climb, because there's only like a month left of Season 6 in League of Legends, and as a top lane main myself, I have had a lot of struggles finding the right champions to actually consistently win and carry games through winning laning phase. And the two champions that I play the most right now on my main account are Darius and Olaf. I used to be a Fizz main, I played a lot of Fizz top, but ever since the nerfs he's still viable, but he's not as strong. And the main thing is that he doesn't win laning phase as regularly as he did before. So in this video I'm gonna cover my setup for Olaf, which is my most played champion in ranked at the moment. I currently sit at a 58.8% win ratio with 20 wins and 14 losses. My average stats per game, as you can see here, are quite good. I die a lot on Olaf though, but that's kind of the playstyle. You basically go really ham and you play really aggressively and you force mistakes out of your opponents. So let's get started with the runes that I run. On Olaf it's really simple, it's really straightforward, you just want a basic page. If you had more rune pages you could have a scaling MR page, you could also go with a scaling HP page, and you can also go with the 10% CDR page. However, I think that this page overall is the best one. I have another account with the 20 full rune pages and there I vary it a bit, but on this account this setup will do, like, it will do great most of the time. It will be optimal in about 90% of the situations that you're in. So if you have this page, which pretty much everyone who has reached level 30 has, you'll be completely fine with Olaf. Next, over to the masteries of the champion. So to start things off in the Frosty tree, you always want sorcery over fury, because Olaf will get so much attack speed by himself, via his W and also his passive, so the spell damage is better, especially for the early game all-ins where you will throw multiple axes at your opponents, and the 2% ability damage on those axes will therefore stack up quite a bit. The next tier you want to go double-edged sword, because Olaf already has a lot of sustain in lane, and because you deal more damage than your opponents in lane, like pretty much Olaf deals more damage than any top laner in lane, so you want double-edged sword because the 3% additional damage will result in more damage than the additional 1.5 taken damage. So double-edged sword is definitely the best choice on Olaf. The next tier, Vampirism, is my preferred choice. It gives him a lot of more all-in power with the 2% lifesteal, and the spell vamp also works on his E and his Q of course, but the Q is AoE, so the spell vamp doesn't really affect that so much. Natural talent is fine. Olaf however has no AP scalings, so you only get the AD part of it, but it's still quite good. You could go natural talent, but overall I prefer Vampirism. This one is like pretty much up to you, but I prefer Vampirism nevertheless. The next tier, Oppressor, is so much better than Bounty Hunter, because Oppressor actually has 100% uptime on Olaf in all-ins because your axe is slow, so therefore you have 2.5% additional damage pretty much all the time. Next tier is very straightforward. You want the armor penetration over the magic penetration. The last tier, Fervor of Battle, is why you take this tree in the first place. Fervor of Battle is so strong on Olaf. I actually first saw this in competitive play a couple of months back when I think Gamsu played it, and he pretty much like 2v1'd and killed the Lee Sin while he himself was at 100 HP, and I think it was Amazing's Lee Sin that was at full health, and he just stood there auto-attacking him to death with Fervor of Battle pretty early in the game. I think it was level 6 or something like that. It was super insane, and ever since then all Olafs all over the world has taken Fervor of Battle over Grasp of the Undying, and since the Grasp nerfs this is even more preferred. For the last couple of mastery points, you want to go into recovery first, because this is better early game than unyielding, so yeah, recovery is pretty much the best choice. Tough Skin, same thing applies here. This is better in the early game. Overall as a top laner, this is pretty useless. It could be good for escaping ganks if you run through the brushes, but most of the time that's not the preferred path to escape anyways. The next tier, this one you could think the runic armor is actually better because Olaf has so much sustain. However, because he is an early game all-inner, I usually run all-in with Ghost at my opponent at level 2 in most matchups. Veteran Scars will help you a lot more if you take a tower hit, or if you go really ham into the enemy wave and take a lot of damage that way. Veteran Scars will help your all-ins, and this also scales decently well. 50 HP isn't, it isn't much late game, but it's still something, you know. For the last tier, Insight is way better than Perseverance, because if you're at below 25% health, you most of the time want to back anyway, because you will be zoned out of the creeps by your opponent, and Insight lowers the cooldown of your teleport and Ghost by quite a bit. You will have Ghost every 179th seconds, so that's pretty huge. Okay, so moving on to the build for Olaf top lane. The sorting items, you basically have two choices. The first choice is what you will be building 80% of the time, which is Corrupting Potion. The reason why Corrupting Potion is so good on Olaf is that it not only provides a lot of sustain health-wise, but also mana-wise. And since the Q damage applies the dot as well, you can poke very efficiently, even under turret. Just be careful, because they actually changed the tower aggro a bit. If someone outside of turret range takes damage by you via dots or any damage at all, you'll still take tower aggro. So that is an indirect nerf to Corrupting Potion, but most of the time throughout the early game the opponent will be under turret anyways, so it doesn't really affect you that much. But overall, Corrupting Potion is the best choice if you're not gonna go for a Sheath all in level 1 or 2 or 3, where Doran's Blade will be better because it provides a lot more of all-in stats. However, if you don't get the opponent to leave lane before level 3, you will be as Olaf, because he has such high mana costs on his Q. So overall, Corrupting Potion is much safer. However, if you think that you're better than the opponent, or the matchup is really favored towards you, or that you have to snowball and get an early kill, for example against a Gangplank, you can run Doran's Blade. However, if the Gangplank just sits back and does not get hit by your axes, you will be screwed, because he will actually outlane you if he himself goes Corrupting Potion or Sapphire Crystal, because he will have so much more sustain. Moving over to the core build, most of the time you want to go Ninja Tab Ice if you're against an AD opponent. Mercury Threads are also good on Olaf, but because he has his ultimate, they are not effective 100% of the time, whereas Ninja Tab Ice does have their effect 100% of the time. After you finish your boots, or you actually don't even have to finish your boots, you want to rush Black Cleaver in pretty much all of your games if you're not really behind. Where if you're really behind, you can either rush Deadman's Plate, you can actually rush a Visage, or you can go into Randuin's Omen if you're against a Yasuo and you're feeding or something like that, which should never happen because Olaf actually wins against Yasuo pretty hard. But you basically want to go Black Cleaver. The reason for why you want to go Black Cleaver is not only the health, the AD and the CDR, but also that if you hit someone with the axe you get a lot of movement speed. So this item is like made for Olaf, it's super good on him. After Black Cleaver, you want to go into Visage or Randuin's Omen if you're in an even game where you're not very snowballed, you're basically, like, it's a regular game, maybe you've gotten like 1 kill in the early game or something like that, you have a little CS lead, doesn't matter, you still want to go Spirit Visage and Randuin's Omen. Depending on what you're facing in lane and what the enemy team comp is, you can switch the order of these, but your first 3 items most of the time want to be Black Cleaver, Spirit Visage and Randuin's Omen, paired with boots basically. After that, most of the time you want to go Sterk's Gage, because otherwise you will lack damage in team fights. Olaf falls off late game and is really strong early game, but with Sterk's Gage you still have kill pressure on the enemy carries. Moving on to the alternative items, I already covered the Mercury Threads. They can be good, they're good against AP comps, they're good against comps with a lot of CC, but since Olaf has his ultimate, Ninja Tabis are generally a better choice. Deadman's Plate is a really strong item if you're snowballing and you want to roam all over the map. It's basically like mobility boots, you could say, and it also provides a lot of stats. But overall, Randuin's Omen is a lot safer, and it gives you better stats in general, especially if the AD carry is building crit or if you're against a Yasuo. Also worth noting is that Randuin's Omen also reduces the damage of, for example, a Nivea E if you're already frosted, because that actually counts as a crit. So Randuin's Omen can be useful against some AP champions as well. Banshee's Veil is a second MR item which you can throw into your build if they have a full AP comp, or if you're scared of poke, or if you're scared of getting hit by CC. However, if you're scared, for example, of getting hit by a Elise Cocoon, you can still ult your way out of that. So Banshee's Veil isn't as proficient on Olaf as, for example, Darius, who is very vulnerable to getting picked off later. But it's still a good item. It gives 70 MR. I think it's the item in the game that gives the most amount of MR actually. So it's still a good item. Thornmail against very heavy AD comps to auto attack a lot. You could go this like, oh, I actually clicked that away. You could go that against, you could go that as third item against some AD champions as well. For example, if you're against Yasuo and you know he will be split pushing the entire game, you can go Black Cleaver into Ninja Tab Ice, into Randin's Omen, into Thornmail, and you basically have no way of losing to him at 1v1. You should not have to do that, but if it's like, if he's better mechanically than you, if you got a couple of kills early game, that is a build that will completely shut him down, and even if you're behind, you will still be able to 1v1 him. So after that, Guardian Angel is also a very good item. It's good as the 6th item, because it prevents you from dying in very many situations. You can go super ham and you can let your team catch up while you're in the Guardian Angel delayed res, and then they can catch up and they can basically kill the opponents. As you can see, it's a 4-second stasis where you can't get hit by anything, so it's pretty good in my opinion. Frozen Heart is also another snowball item. Basically what you can do is after Black Cleaver you can go Frozen Heart in some matchups. For example, if you're ahead against an Irelia, a Jax, a Tryndamere, something like that, and you can get 40% CDR almost immediately and you will be a mid-game beast. So this item is also very strong. You will lack some HP, but it doesn't really matter if you're ahead. So yeah, Frozen Heart can also be very viable. Now moving on to the alternative items if really ahead, and with really ahead I actually mean like if you get 3 solo kills in lane or something like that, you could consider these items. It's still very risky, but it can have a huge payoff. You can basically carry the entire game if you build these items in the right situations. So Swiftness Boots were core on Olaf before they got really nerfed, but if you're extremely ahead they're still the best choice because you can run people down more efficiently. After that, Titanic Hydra is also a very strong item on Olaf to go second item or even last item if you're still like super ahead and you're finishing your last item while maybe their top laner only has 3 items. You can go Titanic Hydra and completely wreck everyone. You could also go this in an even game if your team is really tanky, or if the enemy team in general lacks a lot of damage, or if you're ignoring fights. If you notice that your carries are dying before you're getting anything done and you're the last man alive and you die last, it doesn't matter if you build more tank, right? They're still ignoring you. So then you can throw in a Titanic Hydra and have a lot of kill pressure onto the enemies. Blade of the Ruined King can be extremely strong against split pushers. It can be extremely strong against, for example, Darius. You can 1v1 him even later into the game if you have a Bork. It can be strong against Jax because Jax outscales you, but if you have Bork, you can activate the item to get the movement speed and Kai's E. It's basically really strong in duels, but in teamfights it's pretty much completely useless unless you get onto a carry. And even then you can't maximize the attack speed because you will be throwing axes and using your E most of the time when you're on melee anyways, and therefore you will lose uptime on your auto attacks. But in duels it's still extremely strong, and its split push is very good as well. Moth of Morpheus is an alternative to Surge Gauge if the enemy has a lot of AP, if they have a lot of AP burst, and also if you're ahead, because this item doesn't really give that much MR compared to the other items. It does give you the shield, but that shield is pretty much only useful against burst AP, so don't go this against like Cassiopeia if it's an even game. It will basically do you nothing. It's better to go a Visage. So yeah guys, this is basically my build for Olaf. Make sure to leave comments asking questions if there's anything you didn't catch in this guide. As for summoners, you pretty much want to go Ghost Teleport all of the time, unless they have a really strong ganking duo top lane, for example a Darius Elise early game, then you have to go Flash, otherwise you will feed your ass off if they decide to camp you. But yeah, other than that guys, thanks a lot for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next guide.